The day my family disowned me, it was raining. I remember that detail clearly. The way the water streamed down the windows of Harrison Industries' executive conference room, while inside, my father's face turned an alarming shade of red. "Incompetent," he shouted, slamming a stack of papers onto the polished table. "Do you have any idea what your mistake could have cost us?" I stood there, 22 years old and fresh out of business school, trying not to cry. "Dad, I can fix it. The contract isn't final yet." "Fix it?" My older brother Michael's laugh was cruel. "You nearly sold our shipping division for half its value. There is no fixing that kind of stupidity." The mistake they were talking about was a draft contract I'd prepared for the sale of Harrison Maritime, one of our smaller divisions. I'd accidentally used outdated valuation figures, ones that didn't include our recent fleet expansion. The error was caught before any real damage was done. But to hear my family tell it, I'd nearly destroyed a century of Harrison family business. "I trusted you with this," my father continued, his voice dropping to something even worse than yelling: disappointment. "I gave you a chance to prove yourself, and this is how you repay that trust." I tried to explain that I'd been working 80-hour weeks, that I'd been trying to handle both the maritime deal and the new tech acquisition they dumped on my desk. But excuses didn't matter in the Harrison family. Results were all they cared about. "Jack," my mother's voice from the doorway made us all turn. She stood there in her perfect Channel suit, looking more like a CEO than the socialite she pretended to be. "The board is waiting." My father straightened his tie. "We'll finish this discussion later." But we didn't. That evening, I was called to my father's study, the room where 3 generations of Harrison men had made the decisions that built our family empire. The leather-bound books and old oil paintings seemed to watch disapprovingly as my father delivered his verdict. "You're done here," he said without preamble. "The board has lost confidence in your judgment. Your position at Harrison Industries is terminated, effective immediately." I felt like I'd been punched. "Dad, please. It was one mistake. A mistake we can't afford." He wouldn't even look at me. "You'll receive 6 months severance. After that, you're on your own." "You're firing me? I'm your daughter." Which is exactly why this hurts so much. He finally met my eyes. "You're not just an employee, Emma. You're a Harrison. We trusted you to live up to that name, and you failed." My mother's voice came from behind me. I hadn't even heard her enter. "We've arranged a position for you at your uncle's firm in Seattle, far enough away that this incident won't reflect badly on the family." I turned to face her, shocked. "You want me to leave New York?" "Want has nothing to do with it." Her perfectly painted lips barely moved. "The decision has been made. Your flight leaves tomorrow morning. And if I refuse..." My father's voice hardened. "Then you're on your own completely. No severance, no connections, no family support. Your choice." I looked between them, the parents who had pushed me toward business school, who had drilled the importance of the Harrison legacy into me since childhood. Now they were casting me aside over one mistake. "Some choice," I whispered. Only one person in the family stood up for me that night. My grandfather, Thomas Harrison Thielen, the man who had turned our regional shipping company into a global corporate empire. He stormed into my father's study just as I was leaving, his weathered face dark with anger. "Jack, you fool," he growled at my father. "You have no idea what you're throwing away." But my father stood firm. "Dad, the board has already..." "The board?" Grandpa's laugh was bitter. "You mean those yes men you surrounded yourself with? The ones who forgot what built this company in the first place. I had never seen my grandfather so angry. He turned to me, his expression softening. "Emma, dear, come stay with me. We'll sort this out." But I was already shaking my head. The humiliation was too fresh, the pain too raw. "No, Grandpa, they've made their choice." I left that night, ignoring my mother's carefully planned Seattle arrangement. The 6 months severance would be enough to start over somewhere, anywhere that wasn't under my family's shadow. What I didn't know then was that my grandfather had already set something in motion, something that wouldn't be revealed until 10 years later, when his will would turn the Harrison family upside down. That night, I checked into a hotel using my personal credit card, soon to be my only credit card, once my corporate accounts were frozen. I sat on the generic floral bedspread and opened my laptop, staring at the draft contract that had supposedly destroyed my future. Except, something wasn't right. I had worked on dozens of contracts during my brief time at Harrison Industries. I knew my own writing style, my own formatting preferences. This contract was different. Small things, spacing, font choices, even some of the language, were off. With trembling fingers, I pulled up the original file from my secured backup drive. The differences were subtle but unmistakable. Someone had altered my work before it reached the board. Someone had wanted me to fail. I thought about my brother Michael's smirk, the way he had been so quick to condemn my mistake, the way he had positioned himself as the only competent heir to the Harrison empire. My grandfather's voice echoed in my head, "You have no idea what you're throwing away." But maybe I did. Maybe I understood exactly what had happened and why. I closed my laptop and walked to the window, watching the city lights blur through the rain. 10 years ago, my great-grandfather had passed control of Harrison Industries to my grandfather instead of his older brother, a decision that had shocked the business world. History, it seemed, had a way of repeating itself in our family. My phone buzzed. A text from my grandfather. "Nothing is what it seems, Emma. Watch. Wait. Learn." I took a deep breath, making a decision that would shape the next decade of my life. I would not run to Seattle. I would not fade quietly into obscurity. I would watch. I would wait. And most importantly, I would learn exactly how deep this betrayal went. What my family didn't know, what even my grandfather couldn't have predicted, was that their mistake was about to turn into their worst nightmare. Because the contract I had actually prepared, the one that had been altered without my knowledge, it contained a hidden clause, a small but crucial detail that would only become apparent years later. A detail that would give me control of Harrison Maritime's most valuable assets, right when the family needed them most. I smiled at my reflection in the rain-streaked window. They thought they were teaching me a lesson about failure. Instead, they were about to learn one about underestimating the wrong person. My grandfather's next text arrived just as I was falling asleep. "Remember, dear, in business, as in chess, the queen is the most powerful piece on the board, even if some fools think she's just a pawn." I didn't understand his message then, but I would. Oh, how I would. 10 years is a long time to wait for revenge. But my grandfather taught me that patience was worth more than gold in the business world, and he was right. I spent the first year building my cover, a small consulting firm in Boston, far enough from New York to avoid family scrutiny, but close enough to keep tabs on Harrison Industries. My grandfather's cryptic messages continued, each one teaching me something new about our family empire. "Watch the shipping manifests for the Singapore route," he would text. Or, Pay attention to the Anderson merger terms. Small breadcrumbs that helped me understand the bigger picture. The mistake that got me fired? It wasn't just about the maritime division. That contract had been a test. One designed to show the board that I wasn't fit to lead. What my brother Michael hadn't realized was that I had left my own test hidden in the fine print. Clause 23.4, subsection B, buried in the technical specifications. In the event of division restructuring or transfer of assets, original signatory maintains first right of refusal on all Pacific Rim shipping routes and associated infrastructure. A clause that would mean nothing for years, until Harrison Industries decided to restructure their entire shipping operation, which, according to my grandfather's intelligence, was exactly what they were planning. I built my new life carefully, layer by layer. My consulting firm, Phoenix Maritime Solutions, specialized in shipping logistics and port management. We were small but efficient, earning a reputation for solving complex problems that bigger firms couldn't handle. My brother Michael, meanwhile, was living the life of the chosen heir. I watched from afar as he appeared in business magazines, accepting awards and making grand promises about Harrison Industries' future. Our parents beamed in every photo, the perfect corporate family. Only my grandfather seemed to see through the facade. "Your brother's latest acquisition is built on sand," he told me during one of our secret meetings, always in small cafes far from Manhattan. "He's leveraging the company's future on short-term gains." I nodded, stirring my coffee. "The Asian expansion?" Smoke and mirrors. Grandpa's eyes twinkled. "He's using the maritime division's assets as collateral, thinking they're worth more than they are. Because he never understood the real value was in the routes, not the ships," I finished. "Exactly." He reached into his briefcase. "Now, about those route licenses coming up for renewal." We spent the next hour reviewing documents that would have made my father's blood pressure spike. My grandfather wasn't just keeping me informed. He was teaching me how to take back what was rightfully mine. The years passed. I grew Phoenix Maritime Solutions into a respected name in the industry, though I stayed carefully out of the spotlight. My employees were handpicked, loyal, and well compensated for their discretion. None of them knew about my connection to Harrison Industries. I dated occasionally, but never seriously. The last man I trusted with my real identity had run straight to my brother with the information. After that, I kept my personal life as carefully controlled as my business one. My parents sent obligatory Christmas cards to my Boston address, cards I never responded to. Each year, they included a note about how well Michael was doing, how the company was thriving under his leadership. I filed each card away in a folder labeled Motivation. Then, 3 years ago, everything started changing. The cracks in Michael's perfect facade began to show. First came the whispers about missed payments to major suppliers. Then rumors of delayed shipments and angry clients. Harrison Industries' stock price, while still strong, showed troubling fluctuations. "Your brother mortgaged the company's future," my grandfather explained during what would turn out to be our last meeting. "Now those bills are coming due." He looked tired that day, more so than usual. I should have recognized it as a warning sign. "The board is starting to ask questions," he continued. "About the maritime division especially. The restructuring plan. Will trigger my clause," I finished, "if they try to sell off or reorganize the shipping routes. You'll have first right of refusal." He smiled proudly. "The clause they never noticed, hidden in the contract they used to destroy you." 2 months later, my grandfather had a stroke. The doctors said it was quick, painless. The official announcement praised him as a titan of industry. the man who built Harrison Industries into a global power. I attended the funeral, of course, standing in the back of the church, watching my family play their roles of grieving heirs. Michael gave a touching eulogy about learning business at our grandfather's knee. I nearly laughed out loud at that. The only thing Michael had learned from Grandpa was how to take credit for other people's work. My parents saw me, but didn't approach. Maybe they were ashamed. More likely, they were worried I would cause a scene. I left before the reception, driving straight to my lawyer's office. "Your grandfather's will reading is scheduled for next week," she informed me. He was very specific about the timing. I nodded, unsurprised. Everything about my grandfather was specific and carefully planned. "All major shareholders and family members are required to attend in person," she continued. "No proxies allowed." Again, typical Grandpa. He would want everyone there to witness whatever he had planned. The next week passed in a blur of preparation. I reviewed every document, every contract, every piece of information my grandfather had shared over the past decade. Phoenix Maritime Solutions was positioned perfectly, cash reserves high, credit lines secure, relationships with key players solidified. The morning of the will reading, I dressed carefully in a charcoal gray suit that cost more than my entire wardrobe from my Harrison Industries days. My hair was elegantly styled, my makeup perfect. No one looking at me would see the scared 22-year-old who had fled in the rain 10 years ago. As I drove to the lawyer's office, my phone buzzed with an alert. Harrison Industries stock had dropped another 2 points in early trading. Rumors were swirling about their ability to meet next quarter's obligations. The timing, like everything else about this situation, was perfect. I parked my car and checked my reflection one last time. In my purse was a copy of the original maritime contract, the one with my hidden clause. In my briefcase were documents proving every mistake, every misstep, every bad decision my brother had made while playing corporate emperor. And in my head was 10 years' worth of knowledge about Harrison Industries operations. Knowledge that was about to become very, very valuable. I stepped into the elevator, watching the floor numbers climb. My grandfather's last text message played in my mind. The game is won before the first piece moves. The doors opened onto a floor full of familiar faces frozen in shock. My father dropped his coffee cup. My mother's perfect mask cracked. And my brother Michael, the golden child, the chosen heir, turned white as a sheet. "Hello, family," I said calmly. "Shall we begin?" The conference room at Caldwell and Associates law firm crackled with tension. My family had arranged themselves exactly as I expected. Michael at the head of the table, our parents flanking him like royal advisors. The board members filled the remaining seats, all carefully avoiding my gaze. Mr. Caldwell, my grandfather's personal attorney for over 40 years, cleared his throat. "Before we begin, I should note that Thomas was very specific about the order in which his will should be read. He left detailed instructions." Yes, Michael interrupted. "Can we get on with it? Some of us have a company to run." I bit back a smile. In a few minutes, that statement would be hilariously ironic. Mr. Caldwell opened an envelope, his expression carefully neutral. "Very well. This is the last will and testament of Thomas Harrison AI. The first few items were standard. Personal belongings to various family members, charitable donations, arrangements for his staff. My mother dabbed at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief when he left her his antique jewelry collection. My father nodded approvingly at the size of the charitable endowments. Then came the part everyone was waiting for. Regarding Harrison Industries, Mr. Caldwell paused, adjusting his glasses. The situation is complex. Michael leaned forward. Complex how? The succession plan was clear. As CEO, as interim CEO, Mr. Caldwell corrected. Your position, like many things, was temporary pending the reading of this will. The room went silent. I watched the color drain from my brother's face as Mr. Caldwell continued reading. To my grandson, Michael, I leave these words of wisdom. Power without understanding is like a ship without a rudder. You sought control, but never learned why our company worked. You chased growth without appreciating the foundation that supported it. And most tragically, you betrayed your own sister to advance yourself. Michael shot to his feet. This is ridiculous. I didn't. Sit down, Mr. Caldwell said firmly. There's more. He pulled out another document, one I recognized, my original maritime contract. 10 years ago, a contract was deliberately altered to discredit Emma Harrison and force her removal from the company. I have here the original document, along with proof of who made those alterations. My father's face had turned an interesting shade of purple. That's ancient history. The board's decision was based on falsified evidence, Mr. Caldwell finished. Evidence that Michael provided after tampering with his sister's work. The board members began murmuring among themselves. I noticed several of them eyeing the exits. Furthermore, Mr. Caldwell continued, the original contract contained a clause that becomes particularly relevant now. Emma, would you like to explain? All eyes turned to me. I stood slowly, smoothing my suit jacket. Clause 23.4, subsection B, gives the original signatory, me, first right of refusal on all Pacific Rim shipping routes and associated infrastructure in the event of division restructuring. Which means nothing, Michael snapped. We're not restructuring the maritime division. Actually, I pulled out my phone, displaying the morning stock alerts. You are. The Singapore deal you announced last week? The one meant to save the company from the debt you've accumulated. It can't happen without restructuring the shipping operations. Which means you need my approval? I finished, and you won't get. The room erupted in chaos. Board members were already on their phones, likely calling their lawyers. My mother had actual tears running down her face, ruining her perfect makeup. My father looked like he might have a stroke. Mr. Caldwell raised his voice over the din. There's more. From his briefcase, he produced a thick folder. Thomas Harrison's majority shareholding in Harrison Industries is hereby transferred in its entirety to his granddaughter, Emma Harrison. The silence that followed was deafening. Additionally, he continued, all voting rights associated with the family trust shares are to be exercised by Emma Harrison, effective immediately. Michael collapsed back into his chair. This can't be legal. Dad, do something. But our father was staring at another document Mr. Caldwell had placed on the table, a detailed report of Harrison Industries' finances under Michael's leadership. Your grandfather spent the last 10 years documenting every mistake, every poor decision, every instance of mismanagement, Mr. Caldwell explained. He worked closely with Emma to understand the true state of the company while you were all believing your own press releases. I stepped forward, placing my own folder on the table. Phoenix Maritime Solutions, my company, has spent years building relationships with the clients you've been neglecting. We've secured contracts you didn't even know were available. And now you own us, my father whispered. No, I corrected. I own what's mine. What should have been mine 10 years ago, before you chose to believe lies over truth? Mr. Caldwell cleared his throat. There's one final item. A letter Thomas wanted read aloud. He opened a sealed envelope and began reading. To my family. Power doesn't come from titles or boardroom theatrics. It comes from understanding. Understanding your business, your people, and most importantly, yourself. 10 years ago, you cast aside the one person who truly understood what made Harrison Industries work. You chose flash over substance, greed over growth, betrayal over loyalty. Emma didn't just survive your betrayal, she thrived despite it. While you were all watching Michael play CEO, she was learning every aspect of this industry. She built her own success while watching you destroy your inheritance. Consider this my final lesson in business. True leadership isn't about who can grab power fastest. It's about who can wield it wisely. Emma, the company is yours. Make it what it should have been all along. To the rest of you, learn from this if you can. With love and disappointment in equal measure, Thomas Harrison E. Michael was the first to break the silence. You planned this. All of it. You and Grandpa. No, I cut him off. You planned this the day you decided to forge documents to destroy my career. Grandpa and I just made sure you'd face the consequences. I turned to the board members. A car is waiting outside to take you to Phoenix Maritime's offices. My team will brief you on the restructuring plan we've developed. Those who wish to remain with the company will have the opportunity to prove their value. Those who don't, I smiled. Well, I hear my brother will be looking for work soon. You can't just walk in here and take over, my father protested weakly. Actually, that's exactly what I'm doing. I gathered my documents. The shareholders' meeting is in 1 hour. I suggest you all decide whose side you're on before then. I headed for the door, then paused. Oh, and Michael? Clear out your office by 5. I'm moving in tomorrow. The next few weeks were exactly what you'd expect when a decade of mismanagement comes to light. The press had a field day with the story. Harrison Harris returns. The greatest corporate comeback in history was my personal favorite headline. The shareholders, seeing the detailed plans I'd developed with my grandfather, overwhelmingly supported the transition. Harrison Industries' stock price stabilized, then began to climb as we implemented changes. Michael, predictably, tried to sue. His case fell apart when our father, finally facing the truth about his chosen heir, testified about the document forgery from 10 years ago. My mother attempted reconciliation in her own way. Lunch invitations, shopping offers, suggestions that we should all just move forward as a family. I declined every invitation. Some bridges, once burned, should stay ashes. 1 month after taking control, I stood in my grandfather's old office, my office now, looking out over the city. On my desk sat the contract that had started everything, framed as a reminder that sometimes losing is just winning in disguise. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. I opened it to find a photo of my grandfather, taken the day he caught Michael altering my work. He'd kept it all these years, waiting for the right moment. Below the photo was a message, scheduled to be sent after his death. The Queen has taken her throne. Checkmate, my dear. Checkmate. I smiled, touching the frame of that old contract. The family that cast me out had thought they were ending my story. Instead, they had only written its beginning. And now, finally, they understood exactly what they had thrown away.